coming from some places like Africa and other countries, we look for opportunities to move to better places to bring food on the table.
Yeah.
And now you're moving into a country like Greece where you don't speak the language. So even though you are a qualified art, you are an artist, you may not find what it is that you want because the language that you're using, you're not even communicating. So the opportunity that was there was to do whatever we will find, whatever your hands will find at that point, because Greece is in a better position than Kenya at that point.
Right.
So you find yourself, yeah, doing whatever it comes.
Hello, I am John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the globe, they say, we know where Canada is. And British Columbia is on the west coast, right? Right. And so they know this big city called Vancouver, beautiful city. Well, we are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers for our friends in Europe. And Prince George is about a city of about 85,000 people. And all around us are forests and trees. And then within 50 miles, we have 100 lakes. And we have nature. We got black bears, grizzlies, caribou, deer, wolves, you name it, we have it all here. Living in harmony with nature. Now you have to make one promise, Anthony. Don't tell anybody about this, otherwise they all want to come here. Today,
I won't.
okay. So today we got a very, very special guest and a friend, actually. It's Anthony Murray. And Anthony is originally from Kenya. Is a popular podcaster, host living in Athens, Greece. Anthony is a motivational speaker, an author of many books and best-selling books, actually, and we'll talk about that. He's the founder, owner of meetachieve.com, a platform that connects people to achieve greater dreams. He's also a very active podcaster. He's the top 1% globally, and so today he is our guest. Anthony, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, John. I'm actually very honored to be on your show. And by the way, first and foremost, congratulations on the success of your podcast on YouTube. We are seeing the explosive growth that is happening there. It's a great thing.
And it's going to go much further, as you and me already have talked about. It's just all at the beginning. And can you imagine, Anthony, that, and you probably did the same as I did. 4, 5, 6 years ago, I was doing blogging and then did some interacting on a local, regional level. And then all of a sudden, COVID came. And everything stopped. All of a sudden, I couldn't do that anymore globally at the TV station that we had here. And then me and my team said, what do we do now? And they said, okay, well, you have this apartment in downtown Prince George, which I do, that's where we are, and say, well, let's make a studio out of it. And I said, that's what we do. And so we did that, and as you can see, the 2 couches. So I started interviewing people from around the region and then we did quite a few of them, but there are a lot of very interesting people around the region here, but we were running out of interesting guests. And then they said, maybe I have to set up another studio in Vancouver. And then the more I watched TV, the more I saw CNN, ABC, and all the other stations, see 1, 2, 3, 4 different people from all over the world talking together with the guest. And I said, bingo, let's go virtual. And we did that, and then we joined Podmatch, which brings the people together globally, and we did all of that, and here we are. And so there are you in Greece, and there in Athens, the capital of Greece, and I'm in central British Columbia, around the other side of the world, virtually, and podcasting. And as we are podcasting, we already know tens of thousands of people are watching us, this conversation around the world. and I believe you do, Tony, is that it's just at the beginning. It's going to go much faster, much wider, and so that's where we're going. And I'm very excited about it. I love the media, and obviously today you and me together, and again you being my guest, very very interesting. So give us some story on the background of you in Kenya, and then what did you do from there? And then the question is, how did you end up in Athens, Greece, of all places?
That's a good question, how I ended up here. But let's go back from where I was born, as you already introduced. I was born in Kenya, the central part of Kenya, but most people know Nairobi, which is the capital city of Kenya, in which place I stayed for a very long time after coming from the village, which is the central part of Kenya. I stayed in this capital city of Kenya for my early childhood age. That is, I went to primary school there. I also went to high school there, a bit of college. So that's where I grew up. And yeah, life, I can say, has been good to me. I'm grateful to my maker, and I'm looking forward to better things ahead. How I ended up here, maybe I always say that Greece chose me. I maybe not have chosen it, but it chose me. So I found myself here. So many things that we can always look into as we keep going.
So your education then, did you get your education in Nairobi or in Kenya? And so what did you do? You want to, I don't know, Kenya is a country in Africa. Tell us, what is the size, how many people live there in their capital, and you grew up in a smaller community. So what was the system? How did you grow up? Did you go to university and all those other kind of things?
Kenya is, and I like the fact that you ask that, because I always meet with people who say, "Oh," and I hear people ask you, "Where are you from?" I say, "Africa." Some people say, "I'm from Africa," and they are satisfied. And there are people who think that Africa is a country, but actually it's a continent. For someone who may not know that Africa, because people are
Very,
talking about
very
Africans.
big with lots of countries there
Yeah,
in
a
part
lot
of the
of
continent.
countries.
Yeah,
So Kenya is one of the countries that is in the east part of Africa,
right.
and it's a beautiful country. It's right at the equator,
Yeah,
and that means that we have fair. I mean, we have equal days and equal nights. I was surprised to come to Europe and find, hey, we have some short days and long days, and then we change time. When I was growing up, I didn't know that time changes. I only knew that time is 12 hours a day, 12 hours a night.
yeah,
So I grew up there, and you asked about the population of Kenya.
correct.
It's 45 million around. The capital city,
45 million.
yeah, 45 million people,
That there are 40
individuals.
million in Canada, I believe. So my
Yeah.
goodness. Yeah, okay.
The capital city could be around 2 to 3 million people who are living there.
Wow.
And by the time that I was growing up, everybody was going to the capital. Now I find that people are trying to move from the capital city to go to the suburbs, to go to the some other areas, and live life there. I mean, they've had enough of the city life. That's what I'm experiencing. I don't know about Canada. How is
Yeah,
it?
everybody's going to the city. So most of the population lives close to the border with the United States. And
Yeah.
obviously we go from, Canada's a big, big country physically. And so we have the different provinces, and most of the population lives within, I would say, 40, 50 miles of the kilometers from the US border. And then we are in northern BC, as I indicated to you, about 500 miles north or 800 kilometers, which puts us physically in the center of British Columbia, north, south, east, west, big country. So,
Mm.
so the other part then is that most of the population there, Is it a democratic country, or what is the government system there?
It's a democratic country.
Right.
Yeah, the government is democratic. We came from the British. We were under the British until 1963. That when we gained our independence.
Yeah.
So from back then up to now is when things have continued to change. Initially, now if you'd like to talk that part, and if anybody is interested in that part, when the British left, we were left with the one ruler who ruled us for several years, and then the next one took from him, and it was just one party, one ruler. So there was no democracy, so to say,
No.
and people had to rise up and say, "Hey, we need not to hear just from one person, not to follow just one idea, just one person who's making all the decisions.
They
We need to
call
hear
that
from
a
many."
dictatorship.
Yeah, it could have ended up a dictatorship because we are talking of 20 and years in rulership.
Right.
So then we had the multi parties. So people had the option of choosing whatever leader they want, they go for that. And now things have continued to change. So we are a democratic country. And
Now, I have not been there,
mhm,
Anthony, but I know about it in a way. It's very, very beautiful. It's a very, very successful country, doing very, very well with its population and all of that. So it is a standout of the countries in Africa and an example of what the future will be in Africa as a continent, and it's extremely, extremely interesting. So, that then being said, so you got your education in Kenya,
yeah, that's where I
and
went to school.
okay, and then what
Uh,
did you do from there on forward? Did you go to university there, college, or whatever?
I went to college. I actually went and did fine art and graphics. That's what I took in college.
Okay,
And yeah, I've been an artist. I'm an artist. I can paint. I'm a realist painter. So, and I I started a family. So things came from that direction. I mean, I went to college, and I am an artist from back then. And
okay.
yeah, there's a lot to talk about. So I just actually don't
I'm
know.
just trying to find out more about you because from the you podcasted me at one point, and you're a very, very interesting individual, and I want to have our friends from around the world know more about you because you already said at one point Greece found you and said, "Hey, Anthony, come here." What
Yeah.
happened?
Now that's a big question. Now I have always, when I was growing up in the village, I always and when I my eyes got or started to be opened by the multimedia that we had back then. This is not the internet like we have it today. We had TV, and by saying of TV, it was one channel, and it used to be open 6 hours a day.
And then
So
shut up.
yeah, and then so
Black
five
screen.
people. Yeah, and uh, coming from the village, thanks to my to the family that I grew up in, they are loving family, uh, very wonderful brothers and sisters. So as I was growing in the village, I got exposed to city life. So that's when I moved to Nairobi in my early years, and seeing the TV, the soap operas, and things that are happening outside of the country. I always desired to get out of the country.
Right,
It had always been a big dream to me,
right,
and then so at some point, but my idea of moving out of the country, of going anywhere, was to go to the US. I must say that, because US was the main thing that we used to see on TV,
right.
and people used to talk about. We US is known from every corner of the world for every kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, but then I did not get the opportunity to move to the US. And
Right.
when an opportunity came for some work, it opened up in Greece. And I said, okay, I was not looking to go to Greece, but then
No.
Greece is in Europe. Let me move to Greece. So I found myself here. And
Now,
that's why I said Greece wanted me. I made it up. But I'm thankful. I'm grateful.
I was born in Holland in
Hmm.
1940, and so
Wow.
I'm familiar. I'm going to be 84 November the 1st, actually in a couple of months
Hmm.
from now. 84
Wow.
years young, actually, and so and growing up in Holland, I'm familiar with Greece. I've been there in Athens. The history around it is amazing in Europe, as it is in other places, but you now appreciate it as well as I did. And Greece is a beautiful, beautiful country with lots of history and very much part of the EU, the European Union of countries, uh, and it's changing a lot even there. So it's a beautiful country, beautiful climate actually.
Mhm.
The not unlike South America or Africa in a way, correct? Close in
Yeah,
terms.
exactly. It's a great place. It's a great place. I find people from the upper part of Europe really enjoying to come to Greece. Talk of people coming from Britain where they rarely see the sun.
Yeah,
And in Greece, there are some places that you go to the beach and every month of the year, and
right.
you are okay. It's snowing everywhere else. I mean, so
Yeah,
it's a beautiful.
so I'm from Holland, and then people ask me, what is the climate in Holland? I say, well, the difference between winter and summer is that in the wintertime, the rain is colder.
Mm, okay.
So we get a lot of rain. So, so why did you go, what did you do, or what attracted, you got an offer for a project in Greece. What kind of a
Yeah.
project was it, and when?
Well, that's way back in 2007.
Okay,
And yeah, 2007. So that's about 17 years back.
right.
And talking of a project, maybe not a big project, but is just to do something, whatever comes to, because we can accept the fact that, uh, and maybe I don't know how I'm going to put this, but then coming from some places like Africa and other countries, we need we look for opportunities to move to better places to bring food on the table.
Yeah,
And now you're moving into a country like Greece where you don't speak the language. So even though you are a qualified art, you are an artist, you may not find what it is that you want because the language that you're using, you're not even communicating. So the opportunity that was there was to do whatever we will find, whatever your hands will find at that point, because Greece is in a better position than Kenya at that point.
right.
So you find yourself, yeah, doing whatever it comes.
Now, the other part about it is that in Holland, is that what I find amazing about you, you're virtually fluent, or you are fluent in English. So when you
Yeah.
grew up in Kenya, already Kenya has, what language do they speak in Kenya?
Thank you for that question. Every If you come across any Kenyan who's been to school, uh, that person is likely or must be speaking three languages, because we have one language which we call the mother language that is spoken in the area that you are born, in the province that you are born. And then there is one language that is spoken in the whole country that is known as Swahili. You might be familiar with it.
Yeah,
Swahili is widely known.
yeah,
So every person who comes to Kenya speaks Swahili. And then if you've gone to school, the instruction language in Kenya is English. So
Right.
that's when you get to learn English. You're taught in every other subject that you're being taught, you're taught in English. So you get to speak English from an early age. And having come from under the rulership of the British, so we have a great influence from the British. So I speak three languages. If you'd like to know them, that's one is known as Kikuyu. That's my mother language.
Yeah.
Then Swahili,
Yeah. In English.
and then English.
And then
Now
Greece.
and in Greece you come and now start to speak Greek. If
Yeah.
you're gonna be here for some time and you understand that it's not easy to communicate with. I mean, not everybody speaks English, so you've got to learn to speak Greek.
Okay. So let me compare that to Holland, where I was born. I
Yeah.
was born speaking dialect. I love speaking dialect, even now, still today. So when
Mm-hmm.
I grew up, I spoke dialect. Academically, I was not a success story, Tony. I hate to say this, but I'm just joking. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 7 3 times. So they said, what are you going to
Mm-hmm.
do with this guy? Oh, maybe send him to the mentally challenged school. My parents said, no, let's get him to train and a job where he can use his hands. So I became a furniture maker. But I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, so I grew up speaking dialect. I wasn't long enough in school to learn to speak English, although that's very
Mm-hmm.
common in Holland that they have to learn to speak English, German, French, and Dutch, obviously. So I had to then, I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force when I was 17, and I had to
Okay.
learn to speak High Dutch. So that was a challenge for me. And then
Mm-hmm.
my dream was to go to Canada because we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. And I was so
Okay.
impressed by that when I was 5 years old that I always knew I wanted to go to the land of my heroes, Canada. So
Yeah.
then, when I came out of the Air Force and I had learned to speak High Dutch with an accent, they all said, "Oh, he's a farmer. He comes from the farm, you know." So okay. So then I went to Canada, but I couldn't speak the language. I didn't speak English, and so I had to learn to speak English. So I went from growing up dialect, speaking High Dutch, barely got that under control. Went to Canada, now I had to learn to speak English. So that's
Mm.
where I am today. So
Oh, what?
but what I believe is interesting about that, as you already explained about Kenya, they have different languages throughout Kenya, but the dominant language is Swahili, correct?
Swahili. Yeah.
Yeah, that is the dominant language. So, but I just wanted to compare that to other countries that their culture is very established from the
Mm-hmm.
regions to the larger country, but then still, once you go through college, then you will learn to speak English because most of the teaching is done in English, and hence that's why a lot of people coming from those countries are so easily interactive in interacting with English country, may that be the United States, Canada, or other companies that where speaking English is the dominant language in business. So
Mm.
that then being said, so you want to Greece, and so you stayed in Greece in 2007. Now you are an author. You've written a number of books, and then you became a speaker or a presenter, and then obviously you are also extremely active in podcasting. So tell us, share with our guest as to how did you get to starting books, writing books. Now, I'm an author as well. The first book that I wrote is Against All Odds. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought about it it took me 80 years to live it. Think about, and everybody said, why did you write a book? And so writing books is not easy. So I started over time on, off, and to write this book. And then About 5 years ago, when I'm nearly 80, then if I don't do it now, it will not happen. So it took me 2 years to write it, and then from there, and then I liked it, and I wrote a number of other books, three other ones, and I'm working on two other ones. What motivated you to write books, and about what topics? And then maybe as you do that, then you can share with our guests some of the first one you started with, and then kind of went forward from there.
Thank you for asking, and congratulations on achieving your dream of writing a book before you are 100.
Yeah,
That's quite it's an achievement, because
thank you.
there are many people who live with their dreams and they never achieve their dreams for the whole of their lives. And in this case, we are talking of writing a book. And having a book is one of the greatest things I think one can do, because you can build a house, and after you're gone, there's no identity to you in regard to that house. You can buy some other things. I mean, have great investments, but your book is going to outlive you for many, many years. People will be referring to your book 100 years after you're gone.
Or longer.
Yeah, or longer, even longer. Yeah, so having achieved that dream is a good one. I Let me first go back to when I was growing up, and what inspired me is that I got inspired. Maybe eh, when you grow around people who are positively minded and they are sharing their knowledge, their wisdom, their encouragement day by day, then you're bound to pick one idea, one inspiration here and there. And I got introduced to books when I was still young. I remember one of the books that I read that really made a big impact in my life was when I was in high school, the first year in high school, and is known as the power of thinking, uh, the the power of positive thinking. Sorry, the power of positive thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, that encourages you to think positive in all situations, because in this world you can be impacted negatively by a lot of things that are happening around you. Then I got to read many more books after that that are in the self help genre. And I tend to say I'm a positive thinker. I'm always looking at things in a positive perspective to see the good in every happening.
Show us the books as you're talking about it. They're laying
Um,
right next to you, just so that show it to the people that are watching us.
I was going to introduce the book and the story. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
like
would say,
that. Yeah.
so I would say, out of that, this is where this book came from.
Is that the first one that you did then, Anthony?
Yeah, this is my first published book,
I
but
like
I'll
it.
have.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You like
Well,
it?
what I like about it is that this is mine, so I
Yes.
know what is important is be good for good. If I look at that book, it would attract me to pick it up and look at it as I see it being presented somewhere. The other thing that I like about it, which I love in your case, my name is on this, John A. Brink, but I like what you did because your name is in big letters because you're building a platform for Anthony, and name recognition extremely important. The title is extremely important. Be good for good draws attention, and then stories of I can't quite see it for growth lessons on life. That's a catchy one. I love it. So that's available all over Amazon, on and on and on and on.
Yeah, it's available everywhere. If you just type "Be Good," actually, if you type "Be Good for Good" on Google, it's this book that comes out first.
Okay, love it.
Yeah. So that's one of the other things to do with branding. I can be known. Whoever is talking about being good and maintaining the goodness, and being good just for the sake of being good. You can always remember to use the hashtag be good for good, and that's my brand.
Very catchy.
Be, be good for good.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's a long story to do with this book. And I said it's my first published book, but I have to reveal that it was not the first written manuscript.
Okay.
Because my first written manuscript was written in the early 2000s when I was in my early 20s,
Okay.
that I imagined myself publishing a book because of some ideas that I wanted to spread about achieving a dream.
Okay. I love it.
And I'm going back to a story you mentioned as we are beginning that happened during COVID. Many things happened during COVID, and we can see the negative things that happened. We can explore, we can expand them and magnify all the bad things that happened.
But also
But
positive things.
there is a lot of positive things that happened during COVID.
Correct.
It's during COVID now, as you say, everybody was at home, that I started sharing my videos. Because I have always been someone who wants to give some good words based on what it is that I have read, as I said. So I was encouraging people during that tough time with some videos, stay positive, have a smile on, and things like that. And I started a platform known as, I started a profile on a platform known as TikTok, like everybody else, during COVID. And it kind of blew up. People were interested in what it is that I was sharing. And someone asked me, "Hey, Anthony, have you written a book?" I said, "Oh, yeah. I have a manuscript somewhere that it needs to be a book." So I went to editing that manuscript. But then I remember in the midst of it, now we are in the midst of COVID. So people are not thinking about achieving their dream at this point. They're thinking of other things. And that's when Be Good for Good came.
Yeah.
Now, that book that you are showing there, Achieve Your Dream, was supposed to have been uh, published some 20 years before. And,
If you
and there is a reason.
if you got it there, Anthony, show us the
Yes,
actual.
I've got it there. And the reason that I'm mentioning that is that I know there are people who are watching
Yeah.
who could be holding on their dreams
Yeah.
for years, 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, and you're not making it a reality. You're not taking that action. You're not being persistent on seeing that your dream becomes a reality. Maybe I lacked the information to make this a book. Maybe I lacked some person to help me hold my hand to make this a book. So you don't have to hold on to your dream for 20 years like Anthony did the until COVID hits or something negative just pushes you out of your comfort zone. Just make a decision and take an action and make your dream a reality.
And believe that everything is possible. Everything.
Exactly. Exactly. Everything is possible.
So my dream was that we got liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, of going through the difficult period, 5 years of war, where there was no food, no heat. My dad was lost during the war. They didn't know if he was dead or alive. My mom was alone with 3 kids. Every morning we would go out with gunny sacks in the railroad yard and pick up anything edible and burnable. And we saw far too much that we should not have seen. And then the Canadian Army came, liberated us as part of the Allied forces. April the 12th, 1945, my dream became to go to Canada at 5 years old, and it always stayed with me. I tried to go when I was 17. Obviously, I was then, my parents wouldn't let me, and then I was drafted into the Dutch Air Force for 2 years. And then my grandfather was a master carpenter. I was not a successful at story, as I already told you. Academically, I failed grade 7 3 times, failed grade 3. But I knew that although kids are hard on each other, right? So all the friends that I grew up with, that went to college and university kind of left because I became a laborer. Today I'm proud of that, but then I was kind of looked down at. And, so then my other dream was to go to Canada, obviously, and then I wanted to build a lumber mill. That was my dream. But I wanted to start with nothing. And so I left Holland, when I was 23, with a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and very little money. And I flew into Montreal, took the train across Canada, 4 days, 5 nights. Can you believe it? That's a long way. Came to Vancouver, couldn't speak the language, couldn't speak English. And fortunately, went to an immigration office, and there was a German fellow, and I could speak some German. So I told him I wanted to build a lumber mill. He said, go to Prince George, 800 kilometers north, 500 miles. That's where they have the booming economy, lots of sawmills, and that's where the opportunities are. So I did that by the bus. I can still see where this bus station was from my window here. And I came off the bus. I had my suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, couldn't speak the language, didn't know a soul, didn't have a job. And I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I had lots of attitude. I will always be positive. I avoid negative. Don't want to listen to it. No matter how tough today is, I know it's going to be a better day tomorrow. Passion.
Sure.
Whatever I do, I give it 120%. All the things that I do, even now at still 84, nearly 84, in work ethic, and I work harder than anybody. And I even now still get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed. I always think I'm late, and I look forward to every day. And so then looking back, I did get my lumber mill and a number of other companies now, and but I'm still looking forward every day to challenges. And your message is the right one, because it took me a long time before I felt confident in myself that I could do it. A long time, and so probably after I was 60, I discovered that I was ADHD, and I found a book in the bookstore, actually. Driven to Distraction was the book, and I don't know why I picked it up, but I did. But it was all about ADHD. This is the actual book, written by Dr. Halliwell, and I had him on my podcast, actually. Podcast number 203 is with Dr. Halliwell, who wrote the book in 1993. I bought it in 1997. But ADHD, once I understood it, I know it was a superpower. And now today, with all I have 10 different companies. I'm write books. I'm a guest speaker. I'm very active in podcasting, as you are. Globally the top 1% podcasters. And people say to me, "How do you do all this stuff?" I say, ADHD. That's how I do it. And we're still expanding further virtually every day. So, what was the foundation? Attitude, passion, work ethic.
Beautiful.
Now, if you ask me, and I want to just mention that to you because you may find that interesting. But say, John, what were the 3 books that you took with you from Holland? I say, interesting. The one was Management by Drucker in Dutch, very popular book. Yeah, I'm sure you're familiar with it. The other one was Logical Thinking in Dutch, very popular. It's similar to what you had. And the other one was about Canada. And so I still have those books. They're still very much my favorite. But what happened, circumstances changed my life. But it was all around dreams that when I came off the bus here with nothing, didn't have a job, started as a cleanup man, and then a lumber pilot, I always knew that I would become successful, that I would own my own lumber mill, and I did. But it would take me time. But I started from the bottom, but I always knew that I would be successful. My dream, I never let go of it. I stayed the course. Every day when I want to work, no matter how tough it was in some cases, I always knew I was going towards my dream.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wonderful. Yes, and people should know that they should have the passion, they should have the attitude, the passion, and have a work ethic, taking that from you. And then they are going to achieve their dream just like you achieved your dream.
Yeah, and then
That's
look
all.
back and then say,
Mhm.
what is this all about? It's not about money. It's not about any of those things. But I grew up, I'm sure as you did, in Kenya, is that always be involved in community and give back to the people around you and be active in communities. That's why I do podcasting. That's why I write books. That's why I do a lot of my speaking. And I'm in demand in a lot of areas, especially to younger people, about all the opportunities and staying positive, and then be at peace who you are. You know,
Mhm.
that a lot of people are critical and say, no, this is not right, that's not right, and this is not right. And I said, be at peace with who you are, because there is only one of you. On this
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
earth, only one of you. And become at peace. And then from there on in, also believe in your dreams. Have a goal. And I do the same in all the things that I do. The last book that I wrote is this one. It's about living young, dying old. It's about that's a picture of me actually. I'm very active in the gym, and I'm the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America at
Wonderful.
84.
Wonderful. When I
Yeah.
grow up, I want to be like John.
I love that thing. So tell us a bit more, Tony, about where you. So then you're still writing more books, and then obviously you became also very, very active podcasting.
Yes. What really happened is that after I published my first book, which is Be Good for Good, I wanted to find a way to just let people know about it. And I at that point I discovered that the challenge I was having of finding an outlet for my books, trying to look for someone who could speak about my book so many people get to know. People are lacking the platforms to do that.
Yeah.
So I turned next to my author friends, even online, that are being online, and I said, "Hey, if you are interviewed about your book, would you be interested to come to hop on a podcast on a call?" And they said, "Oh, I would be very excited." So that's how I started interviewing people, and I interviewed people about their books. And then at some point, people said, "Hey," some of the people said, "I want to come and talk with you on your podcast, but I don't have a book." And I said, "Okay, I will interview people as
And that
long as they are."
included me. You interviewed me as I was on your podcast.
Yes, yes. So as long as you're going to come and talk about something positive, something that is going to build someone up, that will add a value on people's lives, then you're welcome to come and talk, have a chat with Anthony. And the podcast is known as Now Tell Us. So you come and tell us. Now Tell Us. That's the podcast. Now you showed a book that up there that is known as Write and Publish Your Book. Out of interviewing the authors that I was interviewing on how they wrote their book, what it is that they are talking about in their books, I got to interview over 100 authors. And at some point, I thought, hey, why don't we have a book, to talk about how one can publish their own books, write and publish their own books? So 16 of the authors, that's including me, came together and shared our story of how we wrote and published our books. And because there could be different ways of gathering material to write your book, coming up with ideas could be different. When you read different perspectives over the same subject,
I
then you
love it.
have a wider page. and
I
you
love
can
it.
you yeah. So 16 authors are talking of this same thing.
Yeah,
I wrote and published my book. I was asked to write, maybe I was a teacher somewhere, and then I put the knowledge that I was getting, or maybe I was a manager somewhere, and I got invited to share whatever it is that I can, that makes me a successful manager with other. So I wrote a book about it. So they put it there. And how did you publish it? There are different ways of publishing. There is traditional publishing. There is uh, self-publishing. So everyone shared their story of how
it's
they went
all
about.
in the book.
It's all in the book with 16 authors. Write and publish your book. Authors tell their stories.
Mosaic and all the traditional
Yeah,
areas, right?
yeah. They talk. They share their story. I share the story of how I wrote mine
Yeah.
and published it. I self-published my own. Another person comes and shares the story of how they were picked by an agent, and their books, his books became famous. He's just about to produce a movie in Hollywood. It's in the book. It says my book was picked by an agent. It's a series. He's written, I think, 30 books in the series, and his series is about to be turned into either a series or a movie. So it's gonna come out soon. So yes, you can. If you're there and you're thinking, hey, you talked about someone having a book being a positive thing, a valuable thing. And by the way, the word authority comes from author. If you're an author, then you show people that you have an authority on that subject that you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yes, you can.
And if you asked me that what is my writing style, I'm a storyteller. That's who I am.
Beautiful.
A
Yeah.
storyteller. And so
Hmm.
that's what I do in my books. That's what I obviously do on podcasting. And then the next book that I'm writing actually is about I have it. I don't know if I have it here or not, but I was going to show you a copy of it. But it's about communications.
Hmm.
And communications go all the way from writing to speaking to interacting. Communication skills is the most important one. Scott just gave it to me. Are the most important thing in the world. I'm going to show you a copy of it here. This is what it will look like, and it will come out in June.
Oh, it's beautiful.
The one
Yeah.
on the right is
Communication.
the one on the right is me. No, I'm just joking. This abstract. So it's the most important part. Everything is based on being an effective communicator. Extremely important. And I want to speak about that. Not only being a good speaker
Hmm.
or presenter, but also other elements of it, the modern communication skills that goes beyond newspapers, news media, but deals with all forms of communication, including podcasting and all the things around it. Is that if you, including good leaders that succeed have to be good communicators, effective
Exactly.
communicators. And
Exactly.
so, and the other part, extremely important of being a good communicator, you have to become a good listener.
Mm.
Very important. And then you have to learn to speak impulsive. And I was part of Toastmasters. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but the people around the
I,
world,
I am. That trophy that you see there is from Toastmasters. Maybe it's not very visible.
I like
I,
it. Why don't you take it down
there's a
and show
trophy.
it to us? You know, just,
I,
can you reach it?
yes, I can.
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
I love it. Show it to us so that we can see it. So
So
I
this is a trophy. Yeah.
oh, I
It's a,
love it. I love it. So because this is what happened to me, Tony, is I up to the time of 1990, you know, when I was
yes.
born in 1940, when I was 50 years old, I was already successful in business, but I had issues with communications. I was self-confident, didn't have, and so I could communicate with a small circle of about 3-4 employees, but not beyond that. And then somebody
Mm-hmm.
said to me, "Hey, John," my ex-sister-in-law, "why don't you go with me to Toastmasters?" I said, "What is it?" She said, "About communication. You find it interesting." So I did. I said, "Is anybody going to ask me questions?" "No. You just sit down and you watch it." I said, "Okay." And so I went down there, and then halfway through the meeting, somebody said, "Hey, John, tell us all about it." I said, "I'll never go back here." You know,
Mm.
but I did. I stayed for 10 years and became a DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster, which is the
Yeah.
highest level of Toastmasters. Probably 10 million people around the world have become Toastmasters. Less than 1% has chosen to go all the way to the top. For me, I have, in all the time that I've been in Toastmasters and rose to that level, I've seen numerous, hundreds and thousands of people that joined Toastmasters that had challenges or confidence issues to become an effective speaker. I've never seen anybody as bad or as self-conscious as me. I could have crawled out of that meeting on my knees to get away from saying, "Hey, John, talk about you." But it changed my life. So what changed my life is the Canadians that liberated us made me go to Canada. The dream
Mm-hmm.
of building a lumber mill, and then the other one was Toastmasters. And then the other one was finding out I'm ADHD. Those are the
Mm.
elements that changed my life, that allowed me at after the age of 60 become an author, obviously in-demand speaker, keynote speaker, and then writing books. And then obviously from here on in, I'm still believe that I will still go forward, become more proactive in terms of writing, podcasting, and communication in the general sense.
It's just beginning.
It's
You
just,
you're just beginning, as you said. So
it's,
there's so much that is waiting for you ahead,
yeah.
and I love that you're still dreaming at 85. eh, I've always heard people look forward to retirement. They say, "I'm waiting for retiring and going at home relaxing all day." That's not you.
No.
Now,
Do
the,
what?
do what? Now, why retire? Retire? Why?
Yeah.
you
To live the dream. I'm living the dream now.
Yes, yes. And people say that the one of the biggest problems that people who are looking forward to retire from experience is that they go very soon, because once you retire from, then you have
No
no meaning to
purpose.
life.
What's
So he advises people, don't retire from, retire to. So if you're
exactly
in a government job or whatever it is that you're doing, and you're thinking of maybe leaving that what you're doing, have in mind what you're moving into. You don't
exactly
just be there, out there, hanging in the air. No, have something that keeps you busy on a daily basis,
exactly
keeps your mind alert, keep your body as fit as John's.
exactly.
Do something. You've got several years to just make an impact on this planet, and we need you
I
more
want
than
to.
you may be
I want.
imagining.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. I want to stay fit and healthy. My wife is very much. She's a vegan, and you know they are, and she's very careful about what we eat and diet. And it took me a long time to get into it, but I'm now and also becoming staying physically fit, healthy, mentally healthy, stay active. And all those things are critically important. I'm going to live till I'm 120.
It's possible. It's possible. Why not?
Why not? You know.
Why not? Why not?
Anthony Muiruri, it was an
Yeah.
absolute pleasure to have you on my podcast again. We should stay in touch as we move forward, because I love your interaction. I love the things that you're doing. I have a great deal of respect for all the things that you're doing and have done. And for all the people watching us from around the world, is that Tony, Anthony, and myself interacting, talking about all the things that we do. Subscribe to our podcast, both mine and Anthony's. comment on it, share it with others, like it, and make comments on it. And at the same time, Anthony, it was a pleasure and a privilege to again interact with you. Let's make sure we stay in touch.
The pleasure is all mine. And I'm wishing all the people who are watching the best in everything that they do. Remember always to be good. Be good for good. As you
Absolutely.
go on, as you go on to achieve your greatest dreams. Yes, it's possible.
I love it, Anthony. You take care.
Thank you very much and have a
You
blessed
too.
day.
Same to you.